Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with David Strickel, the Stream of David, and this is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. The only slight sad part is that David's finishing up his stint with us here today. He's going to be going on and doing other audiences and other participations, which means we won't be seeing him as much as we have in the past. But David, you and I were talking before the show, particularly about the recording we made a couple of weeks ago, and that was probably the best one. But we've had some pretty good sessions here, pretty good recordings. I know I've gotten a lot out of talking to the stream directly. I've also gotten a lot out of talking to you. So I appreciate that part a lot. And that's the part I'm going to take with me when you're not here, even though we'll miss not having you here. I'm just saying.
Well, I appreciate all of that, certainly. And it's been a lot of fun. It's absolutely been a lot of fun. And a lot of amazing information has come from the stream because of your audience's asking. And so that's my favorite thing on earth to do, that I want to do for the rest of my life, is channel and interact with people that have these questions, that draw out this new thought, that really help us all zoom out to a higher perspective about life.
And so I have to just touch on that for a second, because what you said indirectly, what I'll say directly is you love your big passion. Your big passion is the channeling, receiving and transmitting that information from the stream. You just love it. You can't get enough of it. And the reason I want to touch on that is I was actually thinking about that topic, not so much the stream specifically, but the topic of having that deep down passion and how important it is, and how grateful that I am. I found it through podcasting. For me, that's my big passion. And I'm actually starting to expand that in other ways too. The fact that you found it through receiving information from the stream. And I guess I'm mentioning it in such a big way here because I want all of my listeners to find theirs if they haven't found it already. And if they have found it, I want them to celebrate it, because I honestly don't think there's anything better in life. I honestly think the best part of life is finding the passion and living it. Doesn't matter what the money is, what the friends are, what any of the externalities are. It's the passion itself. And I'm curious to know what's your take on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you touched on the money thing, because for years I stuck myself in something that I wasn't that passionate about because of the money.
Yeah.
And I knew better. I absolutely knew better. I talk about how the stream was flowing to me, for it's been flowing my whole life. I didn't always call it the stream, but knowing that I could manifest and I could align with, tune into a vibration, if you will, and have that become my reality. I should have known better, but I went through the contrasting experience of going against what I knew, going with what society teaches you, that a high-paying job trumps everything. And I had a high-paying career in a field that I was not passionate about, and it was 20 years of not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Of my life. And I was passionate about certain aspects, and to get through that period, I had to really focus on the aspects of it that I was passionate about. But it was a long 20 years, and I've been so much happier since I left that and started really following my passion. And the abundance has flowed anyway. Even when the dollars aren't flowing the same, what I finally noticed is that, wow, if I stop judging the dollars and start noticing my life, my daily joy, the way that I live even hasn't changed.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting also that the route that we can take indirectly to basically avoid finding the passion until we finally get to the passion part can be, dramatically different. You described just now about how you had a very high paying job. You were by every measure that society values, you were highly successful, and yet you weren't enjoying it. It wasn't really fulfilling your life the way you wanted to. For me, the opposite was the experience. My experience was absolute economic depression. I mean, one failure after another. I would learn the skills that society said I needed to learn. I do them very well, and I wouldn't get anywhere with them. And literally, I was blocking myself in 1,000 different ways, but I didn't know that. Two entirely different experiences, and we both end up in the same place, following a passion. So it goes to prove it's not one particular path.
There's I don't believe in one size fits all at all.
Yeah.
That's why the stream is the stream, and they are here for those who are aligned with what they're sharing. And they're the first ones to say, this isn't for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I do know what's for everybody, because since this is the last day where we're going to have the stream, we want to have the stream on, and I got some questions lined up for them. So I'm going to ask you to make your connection for what I hope is not the final time here on the show, but for this time.
I'll
anyway.
definitely, like I said, let me know and we'll work out. I'll definitely come back. It's just,
Excellent.
I've got all these new engagements, just on different people's shows and podcasts and all sorts of things coming up in 2021. And I know that I'm already spreading myself too thin.
I know that feeling. Yeah, no problem. So go ahead and make your connection. And while you're doing that, I will first of all let people know who is coming next week. Those of you who have been regular listeners, you probably remember Dean McMurray, who was on a few months back. He goes under the title The Military Medium. He is going to be joining me on a regular basis on Tuesdays going forward. And plus, for next Tuesday in particular, we're going to have a special guest join us. So it's going to be getting to know two people at once. And I won't even tell you much about who that guest is. You'll find out about who she is on that date. But it's going to be really good. And of course, in the meantime, I also want to remind people, use the LOA Today app, which I will be updating very soon now that David is moving on and Dean is coming in, to provide the right contact method in the ask a question section. So you can send your questions in for Dean, just the way you've been sending it in for David. And we will, of course, be including them here on the program. So I see the way David's body is moving. I think we have a connection. Are we talking to the stream?
We are here.
Welcome, stream. And I like I said, I don't want this to be for the last time, but I certainly appreciate it for the last time on a regular basis that you're here. So thank you very much for joining us today. We've had some emails from listeners, and I want to make sure I get through all of them today. One of them comes in from somebody named John, and John had an interesting question that I thought the stream would be particularly well suited to addressing. So I wanted to bring it up and have you address it, stream. He says, Walt, I really love your show. I play it every morning when I get up. This morning, I was really put off with the COVID chatter. Now, he listens to our show on a network called PRN based in New York. And PRN is very much of a, I guess you might call it like a left-wing progressive type. It's the Progressive Radio Network. That's what it's called. So it gives you an idea. It's a very politically oriented and so forth. And for whatever reason, they've agreed to include our show, and we're happy to do that. But anyway, he was reacting to some of the other programming on that network. He says, many of the doctors and scientists that have been banned and silenced by the media have found their voice on PRN to speak out about the misinformation circulating from Big Pharma. Have you listened to any of these shows? You should. I heard a lot of talk about how great it is now that all these companies from around the world are now making vaccines, and how Spirit says this is a good thing, and how I invested in Moderna and now my stock is going up. He says, what has any of this got to do with LOA? Please stick to LOA. I really love your show. It keeps my energy level high. And he signs it, John. Now, obviously, this is directed at me and the show in particular, but stream, I have a feeling you have some interesting ideas and observations for John. So what's your reaction to what he had to say?
We will always begin our reply to a question such as that with the reminder that you are all creating your bubbles of reality. And in your creation of your bubble of reality, your judgment of anything can be something that takes your vibration down. You are discerners of preference. So certainly viewing something and discerning it as your preference to dive into or your preference to move away from is how you are in physical. That is very much a physical characteristic. And being the highest form of intelligence in physical form on your planet, you are supreme discerners of preference. But understanding that your judging of something as bad or negative or not LOA or not spiritual is the very thing that is making it that. And your reaction to something in feeling like you need to run away from it is rooted in lower vibrational judgment of. When you are truly allowing your natural connection to our energy to flow, and you all have it, things are not bothering you that way. You are not necessarily needing to turn something off or move away from. You can zoom out to a higher perspective and stand in appreciation of all that is. Even with ideas and opinions that are not necessarily your preference, you can be in an allowing state of all beings to have their experience. And if that experience is in investing in pharmaceuticals or a pharmaceutical cure to a pandemic, or not partaking in that, and simply zooming out and understanding that you are not in a one size fits all environment. You are an environment for whom, for some, the vaccine and the pharmaceutical industry is going to be a savior, while for others it is a foe. And you get to discern your preference on that, but you're needing to have a certain set of teachings that fall under your brand of spirituality is rooted in your own judgment. And where we guide you with all of this is to create what we've recently called a stopgap. To create a stopgap for yourselves when you feel yourselves begin to be triggered down, and ask yourselves, is this worth going down your spiral over? If you zoom out to a higher perspective, how do you feel about it then? If you are source connected, if you are connected to our energy, and you all have availability of this, we are not judging. We are not judging the investment or not investment. We are not judging the partaking or not partaking in a vaccine. We are not judging the pandemic, how you react to that. We are not judging whether or not you choose to wear a mask. We are not judging any of it. It is all human experience. And you are all different, and you are all going to have different opinions. And the more you can stand in appreciation of the experience and the opinions of others, and not need others to behave in a certain way to please you, the more joy you're going to find in your human experience, because this experience, it is our promise to you, is always going to be one of polarity, that which you may call contrast. It is always going to be present, because you are in a polarized physical environment, as all physical environments are. That polarity serves the great purpose of creating unwanted things for you to move through, to appreciate, to solve, to evolve through. That is why you're in physical. So when you begin viewing your obstacles in ways such as that, and begin viewing all other beings and all other experiences from our perspective of non-judgment, you are not triggered by anything ever in that state.
Yeah, that's a big deal too. And I love that. I love the way you describe that stream. For myself, as the main host of the show, I want to add in another thought, because the way that John summarized his email, he says, what has any of this have to do with LOA? Please stick to LOA. I really love your show. And I appreciate the fact that you love the show, John. I love the fact that you took the time to write in. Thank you very much for doing that. I just want to point out that LOA, that's law of attraction, right? Well, Stream can confirm this, and I'm pretty sure they're going to. The law of attraction applies in every aspect of human life and outside of human life. It applies in every aspect of the universe. It applies everywhere. So why would we draw the conclusion, therefore, that there are certain areas of life that do not apply to the law of attraction, to discussing the law of attraction? To me, that was my reaction when I first read your email. Like, why would we want to exclude stuff? Because law of attraction is involved in everything. Anything that comes into our lives involves the law of attraction. So there's really no limits from that perspective. Now, I will say here on this program, I do tend to follow a policy of trying not to get too much involved in the political side of things, just because that tends to bring up too much low vibe stuff, more than we can often handle here. So we try to stay away from that, because we do want to make this program your daily dose of happy. That's why I subtitle it that way. But I wouldn't want to exclude anybody's viewpoint just because it didn't fit LOA. It all fits LOA. And I just like to keep that in mind. And I would suggest you keep it in mind too. Stream, did you have anything else you wanted to add to what I was just saying?
That which you call law of attraction is a key component to the universal process of creation. And you are indeed correct that the everything that you are experiencing, you are creating. And you are creating via your thought process, your belief system. So anything that is your trigger is only your trigger because you have created that trigger for yourselves. So there is nothing that you encounter that you have to be triggered down about. And your judgment of something as not LOA, it demonstrates a bit of misunderstanding of the universal process of creation. But we will go back to that as the perfection of the question. the vibration dropped, the email was sent in a lower vibration, perhaps of frustration. And in that lower vibration of frustration, the connection was made. And the clarity that your soul is calling you toward and asking that question is being offered in the response to the question. Hence,
Wow,
the
that's really
universal
good.
process of creation at play in an email, in a response.
Yeah, that's a great point too. We do have a tendency to be dismissive of anything that is not high vibe, particularly when we become what we here on the show like to call conscious creators. When we want to start creating aspects of our lives consciously. And I think part of what you were just saying here, at least the part that I pick up from it, is there's great value in understanding what we're feeling when we're feeling at a low vibrational state. There's great value in what we are thinking about and what we're projecting about, because it's part of that many step process. I mean, I'm not sure how many steps you give to a stream. I know Abraham has said 3, 5, 6, I think at one point. But the first step is usually what it is that you don't like, and then the second step is what do you like instead. And without that first step, you can't even get to the second step. Well, that requires appreciating that first step and what happens in that first step. And that's what I'm taking away from what you were saying.
The first step in the creative process is the negative reaction to something. And the second step, as we describe it, is allowing your vibration to move back up in appreciation of step one.
Mm.
Understanding that the transgressor energy, and a transgressor is any unwanted person, circumstance, or event. Anything that you cannot look upon in full appreciation is a transgressor for you. And your transgressors are your creation. And there's nothing wrong with having transgressors. In fact, your environment dictates that you will have transgressors. But your transgressor energy is the very thing that holds you down in what you would call the lower vibrational field when you focus upon them. But when you meet them in joy and appreciation and allow your vibration to go back up, the solution to the transgressor always materializes every single time. And when you solve that transgressor, you expand your being in the solving of it, very often creating new. Every new creation results in the expansion of the universe, creates the expansion of the universe. So your higher understanding of contrast and in the very interaction that you have created in sending the email and receiving the response and responding to it as you do, as you will, and allowing the opportunity for the zoomed out perspective to be your new perspective, that is a creation of expansion. And understanding that there is no polarized political point of view that is what you would call high vibration. The idea of scattering to a corner and picking a side, you are already a bit down your spiral when you're feeling the need to do that. When you are labeling one side right and the other side wrong, this is the way, that is not. That is your preference from your perspective. But when you raise your vibration, you can then see the other perspective, and you are existing more of what we call a gray area, where you are understanding both sides of the coin, both sides of the equation, and you are standing in appreciation of them, understanding where those thoughts and ideas actually originate, even if they're originating in fear, and you can stand in appreciation of another's fear, not needing them to change to align with what you want them to be. That is the evolution of humanity, when more and more and more and more of you come to that realization that you are not in a one-size-fits-all environment. Not everyone is coming with the same perspective, and not everyone is having the same experience. And there is certainly no political affiliation that is aligned or not with the law of attraction, or that which you label spirituality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. That's good. I like that a lot. So, John, I hope that this has been helpful for you. And thank you again for being a listener. Thanks also for sending in that question, because like the stream was saying, that was a good question for you in particular to be asking, but I think it was also a good question for us as listeners to be hearing about it. So thank you. Next, we have actually a series of emails from Jim. Jim has actually written in before stream, and he raises a number of questions in these emails. I'll go through them one at a time. The first one, he says, some of my favorite affirmations or mantras are, everything is working together to my good. Everything is always working out for me. Everything in perfect timing. I allow the universe to pamper me. And he makes mention of, let's see, how does he say this? What is an affirmation? Oh, what is an affirmation that the stream knows will be helpful to me? And I'm not sure if the stream can actually answer that, but I'll leave it open to you. How is there an affirmation that you can recommend for Jim?
You can have as many affirmations as you desire. They're your creation from your perspective, using human words in the language that is your chosen language. It can all be summed up in trust, however. David sums all of it up in allowing the universe to pamper him. And it all sums up as simply as that. If you are speaking an affirmation in your belief of it as real and is, then the affirmation is doing what you want it to do. But if you are speaking the affirmation trying to swim upstream against a current that is trying to take you in a different direction, very often you are simply adding current in the opposite direction because you are trying to claw your way up your spiral. The very best that you can do when you're that far down, rather than repeating affirmations that you are not fully believing, is to quiet your mind, to take your mind off of all of it, to do a low thought activity that will lower your thought process and thus raise your vibration in a more organic way, not trying to affirm your way out of something, but summing up the idea of simply trusting the universe, trusting the process, finding your own words. Very often you are asking us, all of you, to put words in your mouths, to create on your behalf. We are not here to create on your behalf. While we are the source of all creation, you are the creators. It's very important that you understand that. There are examples that we certainly provide, and there's guidance that we offer. And we are the spark when you are up your spiral. We often say when you're at your best, meaning when you are up your spiral, when you are allowing your natural connection to our energy to be realized, you are at your best creatively. You are going to create in your favor in that space, but you are the ones doing the creating. This is why we are not here to guide you to something specific, because that specific thing needs to be your own unique creation for you to receive your expansion from it. That is why you are here in this environment, expressing yourselves in physical as you are, to be the creator, not to have us swoop in and create for you. We are not going to take that away from you.
That's a wonderful perspective. And I'm really glad you shared that, because I do think it is a tendency we humans have to kind of get frustrated or to feel defeated in some way and decide, well, I guess it's because I'm not really good at creating. The stream is so much better at this than I am. I'm just going to, it's like the old thing, let God do it for me. I'm going to let the stream do it for me. Well, that kind of misses the point, doesn't it? That's the point you were just making. We are the creators. We are here to do the creating. And we may have been taught differently from the religions or from the philosophers of the times in the past or whatever. But the fact is, we are here to create. And that's an important thing for us to remember.
There's nothing better for you in your expansion in your own creation.
That summarizes it right there. Really good. Okay, next part of what he was asking about. If all illness is related to vibrational misalignment or stress, how can I change my vibration to remove the food sensitivities that I deal with? I am freedom and joy-seeking being, and I desire freedom on the topic of food, most certainly.
The idea of your body's being a filtration system. This is something that we really want you to focus upon in asking these questions. That your bodies are filtration systems. However, your bodies are your creation from your consciousness perspective. And your consciousness perspective has created a vibration that creates your body and recreates your body. Even your scientists are aware that your body is being recreated at all times. And your continual recreation with the same set of circumstances over and over and over again, that is the combination of things that are in your vibration that is creating the physical apparatus. Any insensitivities that you have is your body's way of letting you know that your bodily creation is not in alignment with something that you are introducing to it. And it has a harder time filtering it. And in having that harder time filtering it, you are adding stress, as you have stated. We guide you to begin to work on shifting focus, but not necessarily test your focus by reintroducing these things that you are already aware make you feel bad. Because in the feeling bad, you are lowering your vibration almost every time. If you can buck that system and raise your vibration, even when your body is not feeling good, that is a step in the right direction of gaining greater control of your vibration, certainly. But why place that on yourselves? Why not simply avoid the things that you know your body does not filter as easily as other things? Focus on the things that your body does respond well to, then do the vibrational work, and then realize that you will create a scenario for yourselves where you by accident discover that you are no longer intolerant to that which you once considered intolerance. But anytime you are trying to overcome an intolerance, you are almost always setting yourselves up for failure, if you will, because you're trying to think your way out of something, yet that vibration is still present because the question mark is still there. So you try this thing wanting to see if you've done enough vibrational work to make your body respond to it differently. And the vast majority of the time, your vibration is still not in the state of is. You're questioning, you're wondering, can you tolerate it now? Allow yourselves to find out about that tolerance by accident, not on purpose.
Yeah, I like that. And it matches not just with food sensitivities. I think it matches almost anything, probably anything related to
everything is
the
vibration
body.
at its core, and vibration operates the same on every single topic.
Okay, so yeah, then I'll just take away the modifier and just say anything. It applies to everything and anything where we're dealing with X, whatever X is. And I guess in this case, we're limiting it to the human body. So any kind of filtering that the human body does, you very accurately describe the human body as a filtration system. Well, any of those that we're running into trouble with, I love the solution that you suggest. The solution is, instead of trying to set yourself up to do it the hard way, why not do it the easy way? I mean, it almost runs contrary to what we're used to as human beings. We live in this world of contrast. We're constantly diving into the contrast and experiencing all this stuff, and a lot of this stuff we don't like. And then we're finding ways to either pivot on or zoom out, as you describe it. We're trying to deal with it. We forget that it's actually okay to live on the easy side too. And that's kind of what you're pointing at, isn't it?
Indeed.
That easy side makes such a difference. It's really something. All right, let's go on to the third and last part of Jim's questions. He said, I don't know if you can answer this one, but I'll bring it in anyway. He says, in the last couple of weeks, this is from the point that he sent his message, I've been having trouble all over the place with electronics and lighting. Why? And I bring this up in part because I hear this a lot. We hear this a lot on the podcast. People talking about external, usually electrical influences or technological influences, and wondering, well, is there a sign that's involved? Is there Mercury in retrograde? They're always looking for some sort of an external explanation for what's going on with electronics. And one of the reasons this is fascinating to me is I've provided in the past, as one of my past careers, I was a computer technician. I would help solve computer problems with people. And I experienced what so many computer technicians have experienced, and that is when the technician shows up, the problem goes away. And I never really had a good explanation for why that happened, but I figured I'd bring that in here because maybe you can explain that as well. But in general, anybody who's bringing up this question of having trouble all over the place, as Jim puts it, with electronics, lighting, and so forth, what's that all about?
That is a belief system that is present. David works on in his studio on the computer several hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And is constantly finding himself hearing stories of others recounting how difficult the technology is to use, yet he never has the difficulty with the technology, never has an issue with electronics, never has the Mercury retrograde experience. And it is not because he is some superior physical being by any stretch of the imagination. It is because it is within his belief system that everything just works, regardless of Mercury retrograde, regardless of vibration, regardless of whether he is up or down. That is not a factor. The stating that electronics do not always cooperate creates the reality of the electronics not always cooperating. And certainly when you're in high vibration, you are in a much better position for everything to always simply flow and work out, because you're in this high joyous vibration where you're not necessarily dipping down and looking for the problems. But when you dip down into lower vibration, you are aligning yourselves with obstacles naturally. And if your subconscious programming is that you have trouble with electronics, and you were telling the story over and over again, even if it's running in the back of your mind, you are going to create that reality for yourself over and over again until you break free and understand that once again, the very best way to solve a recurring problem is not to dive in and try to surgically remove that recurring problem, but rather focus on keeping your vibration high, where everything seems to solve itself, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, it does. In fact, as you describe that, I'm reminded you've been providing this information for us with David picking up that information from you, the stream, and transmitting it to us for about 6 months now. You started with us in July, and now we're at the end of December. And I recall somewhere in the middle of that, maybe 3 months in, there was one particular show we did where there was some bad weather going on outside, and there was a definite risk that we were going to lose connectivity. And I was working really, really hard on trying to maintain a high vibration and believe that the show was going to work beautifully. Now, we'd already taken steps to hand it off to, I think it was Daniel, who was doing the show with us that day, so that his connection would keep the whole show going in case I lost connectivity. And just as I thought everything was holding, I'd start to lose my belief a little bit. You pointed this out to me after the fact, that I was getting the vibration up and I'd lose the belief, and then sure enough, I get knocked offline. Then I come back on 5 minutes later and I'd build it up, and I'd just get to that point, and then I'd start to lose the belief and it would fall off again. And now all of a sudden I was knocked off the show. It happened 3 or 4 times. We got the whole show recorded, but it was funny. It was funny because it was like a real world, right on the spot experience with what happens as our vibrations shift. And I was experiencing it directly so that everybody in the world could see it. And I don't know if you remember that particular example, but it just really illustrated for me how easily, first of all, our vibrations shift, how quickly they can shift, and how quickly the results of that shift can come into our experience.
Learning to create these little stop gaps of appreciation in the moment of your transgressor energy especially is highly transformative, because you all possess the ability to shift the narrative in an instant. And it is about meeting the obstacle in joy. So rather than saying that electronics do not cooperate, make it a fun game when electronics do not cooperate. Signs of how powerful of a creator you actually are, that you are creating this reality where electronics do not cooperate. Appreciate how powerful you are in that creation, and notice that the instances will become fewer and further between. Then make your real work being keeping your vibration in a higher alignment most of the time. And you simply do that by appreciation, finding things to appreciate all day, every day, understanding the power of detuning your transgressor energy. If you have triggers, where are those triggers rooted? This is all the practice of Taya, identifying where the roots are for your triggers, finding appreciation for those, detuning that negative energy, because that negative energy is always present. Even when you are up your spiral, it's sort of lurking down there waiting for you, just like our energy is at the top of the spiral, always waiting for you to go up.
I'm reminded also of a topic that I've been addressing with other co-hosts here on the show for the last week or 10 days or so, off and on. The topic is related to the scientific side, what scientists have been able to discover that are things that are related to the things we talk about here, what it takes to get to that higher vibe space, what it takes to have the kinds of results that we're looking for, and all this kind of stuff. And science has been able to give us a little bit to help along that line. One of the things science has given us is an understanding of a portion of our brains called the ascending reticular activating system. ARAS is the acronym usually associated with it. And the defining characteristic of it that I always bring into the show here, there are a lot of things that it does, but the thing that I always point to is that it's part of that filtration system. And I looked this up in reference to something that another co-host, Cindy Chavez, asked a question about a couple times here. That is, just how much data do our brains get every single second? how much is transmitted by our five senses, not to mention what goes on with our emotions and our thinking processes. And it turns out that when you add it all up, there's something like 11.2 million bits per second of data that enter our brains, and our conscious minds can handle about 50 bits a second. So I do the math on that, and I conclude that 99.999% of all the data that comes into our conscious minds, we can't process. We don't process it all. And now it becomes really obvious to me why it is that, when we try to attract something, we don't see it. We don't experience it. We found some way to not allow our filtration system to notice it. And so even though it's there, we don't think it's there. That's been my observation. I'm curious, can you address that a little bit? Am I missing the point, or have I touched on an aspect of, how it is and why it is that we don't seem at times to be getting what we're looking for?
You get into understanding that everything is vibrational, and by vibration there is a station that is playing, so to speak, and you tend to do, all of you tend to tune into a specific station that you're very comfortable listening to, and focusing on that station that you want to hear and enjoy hearing the most, and it becomes your habit of thought. That is your ego consciousness shadowing your eternal consciousness. Your eternal consciousness is all-knowing and all-seeing. But as a human being, your intention is not to be in a physical environment with all of that information. Your intention of coming as a human being is being a being of high intelligence within your environment, but certainly understanding from the higher perspective that your more narrowed focus and your limited ability to process is actually serving your expansion and delivering this contrasting experience. That is one of the components that is keeping you from having that broad knowledge of how vastly powerful of a creator you actually are, and gets you into that lower vibrational mode of a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt, a little bit of concern, a little bit of impatience. And those things create a negative set of circumstances for you that serve as the launch pad to your next new creation. If you are operating in a physical environment with all of the vast information that is available to you, which is all that is, you would have all of the tools to manifest everything that you could ever desire. And in your manifesting of everything you could ever desire and never having one problem to overcome, you would become obsolete in the environment very quickly, because you would get so bored with your manifestations without challenge. You all believe that you want to live in an environment where everyone agrees with you, everyone behaves the way that you want them to behave, and you have every single thing you could ever imagine having. But as soon as you have all of that, what's left?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
There's nothing that's left. And in your completed state, you indeed operate at that level. You have it all. You have access to it all. Anything you could ever want to experience, that is the idea of heaven, is that you have everything that you could ever want or need in that environment, and you do. And there is nothing to want for in that environment. Therefore, there is no new creation from that environment. That's why physical exists. That's why you express your consciousness in a very limited way in a physical environment, and come into the physical environment and absolutely become more and more sophisticated with your ongoing experiences, meaning expansive experiences. But understanding that your mind has a limited capacity to absorb information for the very reason that you are here to have a limited focused experience.
So next, excellent point. And I think it really does a nice job of driving home the value of that limited experience. I think we often reach for ideas about, well, what's it going to take for me to manifest what I'm looking for? Why don't I get what I want? All that kind of stuff, because we get frustrated. I mean, we are in an environment, and we are living with a set of limitations that lead us to that contrasting situation you talked about, that contrasting environment, where we're experiencing stuff that we don't like, that we're doubtful about, that we're fearing about, that we're angry about, that we're frustrated with, that we're depressed about. And in doing so, it's like we need a breath of fresh air at some point. We need like some reassurance that, yeah, we actually can get where we want to be, despite the fact that we're experiencing all this stuff that we don't like so much. But I think there's also the other side of it, and you touched on it beautifully. You brought it in a way that I hadn't really thought about clearly in this context, that the limitations, the filtering limitations, are intensely valuable. I mean, you express it in terms of this is how we create, this is how we expand, this is how the universe expands, this is how we personally expand. And that's great. It doesn't quite have the same emotional impact as this is leading to something that you really like. For a human being who's living within the limitations of the filtration system of not just our bodies, but of everything that we are in this human form, that's what we really want. We want to know, how can we get to that place where we're feeling good? Because that's when we know when we do our best stuff. And you're pointing out you already have that. You just haven't really recognized the value in what it is that you're experiencing that you don't like that helps you get to that point. That's a really, really valuable lesson. Really
The
good.
shift in perspective and the discovery of joy in what is the trip from what you might call 3D to 5D.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, and it's available to all of you. And it is not a physical space of fairy dust and unicorns and rainbows. It is the perspective of appreciating all that is as it is, and appreciating this limited capacity experience that you very much desired to come and have, even if it is from your human perspective not going the way that you wanted it to. Understanding the magic and all of that unwanted and all of that contrast and all of that, even trauma, if you've experienced that, all of that is that way because of your perspective of it. And when you claim your power to shift your perspective on any and everything in your environment, then you claim your power to experience joy in your now. And that is what we are guiding all of you to. You can all have all of the mansions and yachts and Rolls Royces that you desire, but finding your joy in what is where the magic is. And as our promise to you, there are human beings that have those material possessions that are sitting somewhere on a sofa talking to their shrink in the very moment about how to experience joy, because they have all of these things that they thought were going to bring them joy, and they are not bringing joy.
And in fact, they pay large amounts of money to those shrinks. They earn that money for a reason, so they can pay it to the shrink to learn how to get into that moment, which is an excellent point. So let's take that as our point of conversation for the rest of the time that we have with you, Stream. Let's talk about that now, because I don't think that's really something that we've talked about a lot per se, as how important the now is. We've usually talked in terms of what it is that people are trying to attract into their lives, or problems they're having with their vibration, all that kind of thing. We don't really spend a whole lot of time talking about the now. And I have a way that I want to kind of address that, but first I just want to kind of open it up to you. So talk about now for a moment. Why is now so important?
The now is all you really have, because there is no true future, there is no true past. You are expressing yourselves in an environment where you are perceiving linear time, but there is truly no linear time. So the experience of joy is always only going to be available in your now. And these things that you believe that you want, because your society tells you that if you have X, Y, and Z, you're going to finally be happy, that becomes a moving target when you're not first happy. That idea that as soon as you manifest the right car or the right house or the right body or the right partner or the better health, you're finally going to find happiness. There are endless human beings that will tell you that they managed to align with allowing those things to flow in and still found themselves unhappy. The availability of joy is always in the now. And there are certainly human beings experiencing things that you believe would separate you from your joy that are experiencing joy anyway. You all see examples of this at times. Very often young children that are living in poverty and playing in the streets and laughing and having fun, not understanding that they're living in poverty. They are not judging that environment because it's all they know. Then they get a little older and they through TV or social media or interacting with other people, find out that the way they've been living and enjoying isn't right. They're not supposed to be happy that way, that they need to have X, Y, and Z to finally be happy. And that becomes very disruptive in their lives, because now suddenly they're judging their life experience as one that is not desirable. But when they were younger, it was everything to them and it provided joy. And that joy can be provided at every step of the way, all the way through your life experience, regardless of what you're manifesting. And this idea that poverty is this awful, terrible, evil, awful thing that no one should be in, and that it's holding you away from everything, life itself, all of that thinking is exactly what makes that experience so awful and distasteful for people who are judging it. But once you make peace with whatever is, you are not sticking yourself in that situation. Notice the judging of it very often tends to stick you there. The judging of your body, the judging of your health, the judging of your loneliness, the judging of your significant others that you attract, the judging of anything as unwanted, as negative, as something that you want to move away from, more often than not for you vibrationally tends to keep you in it. It's a recurring scenario. And even if you move from one version of it, you find yourselves manifesting yet the same version, the same thing over again, and just a different version of.
Yeah, that's a real problem too, because when you start getting that negative spiral going, it keeps going over and over and over and over again. It can
And
get
the
quite
reason that
monotonous.
this occurs is because you're moving through vibrational flow up and down all the time. So when you're up, it's easy to believe something different. When you
Yes.
are up and you're connected to our energy, you can imagine things that are not yet created and believe them into being, because that's the source of all creation. That is a process of creation right there. The only reason they do not come into physical fruition instantaneously is because the vibration drops. You revisit the idea from a different perspective, and now you're revisiting in doubt, in fear, and worry, and impatience, and all of these things that are less than trust. You are no longer trusting the universal process of creation. You're asking, where is it? What are you doing wrong? Why isn't it working? Why are you talking about politics on the attraction channel? These types of things come into play, lower the vibration on a topic, and chase away the very things that you want. But that is the universal process of creation. So we are guiding you not to judge yourselves for that, because the universal process of creation states that when you're in high vibration, you're going to think a thought. And the moment you think that thought, the creative process has begun. And the only thing that you need to do to allow that thought to become a physical expression of reality is to believe it and trust it and let that be that. But you don't do that. The things that you want the most, you're thinking about often, and you're going to think about them through vibrational flow. But the beauty of that is the thing that you really, really want that's way over here, as you go through vibrational flow and you start to create something in high vibration, only to have it sort of spin out and spiral out of creation in low vibration, and it all seems to fall apart like it's never going to be. When you learn to meet that process in joy, understanding that is the universal process of creation, and allowing your vibration to go back up where all the solutions are naturally, and allow whatever that's spiraling out or spinning out of to be fixed, to essentially be corrected naturally by simply raising your vibration, allowing the vibration to go back up and realign with our energy. The spark of creation, but you are the creators. You're back up believing and trusting and knowing that it's all going to work out. And then whatever you are creating is actually created as a better version of a better company, a better fortune, a better body, a better health situation, a better relationship. Whatever it is you're trying to create, moving through this vibrational flow creates a better version of. This is why naturally the things that you want most, the big things, take longer, because you are visiting them through up and down, high and low vibrational flow. They do not have to take that long, but inevitably you're going to have this flow. You're going to think about them often, and it's natural for you to do this, and it's natural for you to have things go through all of these different iterations of falling apart and coming back together, and falling apart and coming back together. But you're actually in the process of creating a better version of.
Wow, that's really, really good. As you were describing that, it also occurred to me that one of the things that I can imagine certain listeners are going to attach to is in your story about the kids living in poverty who don't realize they're living in poverty. They're happy, they're living happy lives and so forth. From the perspective of somebody looking outside in, that seems incomprehensible to many, particularly if they have some knowledge of how law of attraction works, because we're taught that we attract best when we're in a high vibrational state. So if those kids are in a high vibrational state, how is it possible that they are living this poverty lifestyle? Shouldn't the abundance be piling in on them?
Their version of abundance from that age perspective is there. What do you want when you're a young child? You're not wanting a mansion. You're not wanting a yacht. You're not wanting a lavish vacation. Those aren't even in your sphere of reality generally. When you are existing in poverty and you're experiencing joy and fun and freedom and a cheeseburger here and there, that is your version of abundance.
Yeah, it's true. That's exactly the case. And it's the part that we overlook. Perspective is such a fascinating thing because it's so easy for us from our own individual perspectives to forget what other perspectives there are. And yet perspective is a big part of the Taya practice, learning how to appreciate other perspectives, even the ones that we don't like so much. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
The idea that you are all independent strands of consciousness. You often hear speak of other lives and other experiences and other existences. And while it's not the one-for-one scenario that a human being would negotiate as being how it is, your energy has flowed through endless existences. That is what makes you unique. And you vibrationally align with a set of circumstances to project into physical reality. And that vibrational alignment is not about coming and having every single thing that you ever imagined that you would want. That vibrational alignment is very much a level of sophistication that your soul consciousness is seeking as a point of entry into physical, so that you will automatically have a set of things that you can discern as your preference to move toward, and a set of things that are going to create obstacles before you even exit the womb. And that is your desire as an eternal consciousness to come and have the limited focused human experience in this case, so that you are coming and having this contrast and experiencing everything from the perspective that you develop. You are the creator of your perspective. And you are all very aware that there are siblings that are born to the same parents in the same economic scenario, that grow up in the same household, attend the same schools, and members of the same religion even, that grow up with very different perspectives about life. That shows you your uniqueness. And in that uniqueness, you can see from a higher perspective that those who perhaps experience greater contrast early on, that their only mode of surviving that is to disconnect from it, disassociate with it, and mentally and thus vibrationally move to something very, very different, to move through life. The sophisticated gift that early childhood trauma creates. But that's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
Because there are certainly some that stick themselves in that traumatic place, and they tell that story again and again and again in a loop, some for their entire life. Can lay on their deathbed and into their 80s and 90s speaking of the horrors they experienced in early childhood. While others in their teens and 20s will say it was a long time ago, and it doesn't matter.
Yes.
That is the magic of perspective, and you all own your perspective. You can all shift your perspective regarding anything, and you believe that you're programmed, but understand that all of your human programming is your internal programming that you created. And the wonderment of you taking the ownership of that creation is that now you hold the power to change it.
Yes.
And you do, but understand vibration. Vibration doesn't change instantaneously and stay there. And the reason it doesn't stay there is because you're going through vibrational flow. You hear these teachings, you read books, you attend a seminar, you hear words such as this, and you're flying high, you're getting it. It makes so much sense. You're going to start applying this in your lives in a different way. Then inevitably you leave the seminar, you turn off the podcast, you shut down your computer, you put down the book, and then you start getting back into what you call your reality, and the vibration drops.
Yep.
and the old thoughts reemerge.
Yep.
Because they are vibrational and they're waiting for you down there in your lower vibrational field. This is why we have delivered Taya for humanity. Not all of humanity is ready for Taya, but Taya is a set of tools that guides any human being that aligns with these set of tools and adapts them as their new way of being into appreciating vibrational flow, into understanding that the lower vibrational field does not have to be navigated perhaps the way that you always have. It does not have to be this terrible time. It does not have to be judged as bad, something that you must avoid at all costs. And when you stop judging it and you stop demonizing it, you move through it with grace and ease, and polarity is naturally going to take you back up just the way it naturally took you down for a bit.
That's fabulous. That's a great way to summarize and kind of bring to a close all the time that you spent with us, Stream. We really do appreciate all of the guidance you've given us, all of the assistance you've given us over the months. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask you to do your disconnect from David so we can talk to David again. And in the meantime, remind people that even though the stream is not going to be here on a regular basis, Dean McMurray is going to be my new co-host. He is a psychic medium. So just as you've been asking questions for Psychic Rita on Fridays, Rita Giganti, you can also ask questions for Dean as well. I'll be incorporating that capability into the app. But in the meantime, just send me emails and I'll be glad to include them in my conversations upcoming with Dean. But David, coming back to the fully alert conscious state again. Once again, the stream knocked it out of the park. I don't know how much you remembered of it, but this is a good finale to your time here on the show.
Good. It felt really good. I don't remember all of it for certain. I remember them using the word shrink, and I remember thinking, oh, yes. Oh, Michael isn't here. My partner is a psychologist, and he hates.
Oh, he is. I didn't realize that. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. The guy that channels lives with a psychologist.
Yeah, right.
I always joke
that's great.
Study for him.
That's funny though. But before we run out of time, I want to give you one last chance to give people a little more information once again about how to reach out. The link is still going to be available in the LOA Today app. We'll probably move you over to a former co-host section that I'm going to create, but it'll still be there. But talk just for a minute about the Taya practice and what you can provide for people who want to pursue that further.
Yeah, definitely. If you go to thestreamofdavid.com/Taya, TYA, you can learn about the Taya practice. You can learn about my Taya boot camp. We have incredible stories coming out of Taya boot camp all the time. It'll be 3 years old in March of 2021. And you name the manifestation experience, we've probably already had it. Manifesting full custody, manifesting pregnancy, manifesting healthy babies, in challenging pregnancies, manifesting a path away from terminal cancer, manifesting millions of dollars, manifesting businesses. But more importantly than all this stuff is really finding your path to joy and alignment with just loving yourselves and loving what is and understanding how the universe works. That is the real gift of the Taya practice. And boot camp, if you go to my website and join the email list, we're doing some specials for boot camp in January. So you'll be signed up for those. There's a free download that we offer, and you get on the mailing list by doing the free download. And then you can also go to your app and text. I think that text number, that link is in there too for the free guided meditation.
Yeah,
so you can get all of that stuff and start learning your Taya practice, and just Google the Taya practice. There's tons and tons of information on the web about it at this point.
Cool. Well, David, first of all, I got to thank you personally for taking the time that you have taken in your busy schedule for the last 6 months to join us and share the stream with us. I really appreciate that. And plus, I've also enjoyed the shows that you and I just talked without bringing the stream into it. So thank you both ways.
Yeah, you're a great guy, and it's just easy to talk to you and get along. And you bring out the best in the stream, and I love that about being on here. So definitely invite me back in 2021. I'll come on as a guest. But
cool.
New adventures in the new year for sure. And thanks for letting me be on for all.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we really appreciate it. We'll definitely have you back. And thank you also to our live stream listeners, and especially to our podcast listeners for sharing your questions with the stream. We'll hope they were helpful. And thank you for being a listener. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.